You, and I'm going to pass the mic to Ankit now.
Hi, everybody. You guys have stayed awfully quiet for the last, I don't even know, like 30, 40 minutes now. So thank you for your patience. That's really, really exciting. And I hope that so far the presentations have not been too long. I'll try my best to be as quick as I can. So I think the first thing that I just wanted to think about is just the, I guess, the moment that we're all sharing right now. It's kind of exciting that on Thanksgiving weekend, all of us are sitting in the same room together, enjoying all this food and enjoying each other's presence, and that you guys would even come here to celebrate my graduation, I guess, and be here to support the work that we're doing in India, and that's really amazing. In business school, we're taught a lot to learn about calculated decision making. We're taught a lot to learn about calculated decision making. And what that essentially means is weighing potential outcomes and the likelihood that they happen, and then making decisions to maximize your outcome. That's something we learned for 4 years in business school. So the more I think about likelihood, the more I actually look at what's happening right now. Last night, a lot of members of my family, we got together and we celebrated the 80th birthday of my Masaji, who is the brother-in-law of my grandma. He, 80 years. Amazing. And the funny thing is, at the celebration, there was a lot of speeches given, and everybody was talking about how if it weren't for him, we would not be here today. It's interesting. He was a doctor when he married my Masi, who is my grandmother's sister. And back then, immigration laws were a little more easy to deal with for people coming from India to America. So because he was a doctor, he was able to come to America, and because my Masi was his wife, obviously she could join. My butter mummy was her sister, so she was able to join her as well. And then my dad was the oldest of her children, so he came. And for him, he needed to find good footing financially. He just needed to be stable before he could bring the rest of the family over. And once he found that, he was able to bring his younger brothers, his sister, my mom, my brother, my sister. By this point, I didn't exist, I guess. But the potential for me was also brought here. And even then, you just think about if one thing changed in that entire chain of events, then none of that would happen. If one thing changed. If my Masi didn't marry my Mataji, if he wasn't a doctor, if my dad didn't find financial footing here, if for some reason the immigration laws were not the way they were, or if this happened maybe 20 years later where now it's basically impossible to come to America. All of those things happen in just the right way to make that possible. And mind you, that's just the likelihood that they end up in America. And that's 25 years ago, let alone the chances that we end up here. So for the last 25 years, there's a million more things that have happened that led to us being here. It's incredibly fortunate. And then beyond that, my dad had the wherewithal to work incredibly hard to make everything possible for me, my brother, my sister. And being that we were raised in an American culture, I think we're very prone to thinking that we deserve everything that we get. I think that being that things were much easier for me than they were for my dad, it's very easy for me to say, well, this is my right. I'm entitled to this because, well, I wouldn't not have it otherwise. Because obviously he gave everything to me. And the more I think about that, the more I realize I was incredibly ungrateful. Through college, I kind of just took everything that I was given, and it was just given. I didn't say thank you. I had very few displays of appreciation. But then I went to college, and I learned about calculated decision making, and I learned about likelihood. And then I realized that there's no reason that I should have everything that I have right now. There's a million things that worked in my favor that led to this happening right now, but only maybe 0.01% of that had to do with my hard work. The rest of it had everything to do with likelihood and chance. And when I think about that, it makes me realize that my hard work is no different from anybody else's. I spent a lot of time in India, and in India, I see millions of people who, they work much harder than I do. Much, much harder than I do. And I'm sitting here, I have the suit on, I have the delicious food that we're all sharing today. I have the opportunity to speak in front of an incredible audience of highly accomplished people who are listening to me despite the fact that I've done pretty much nothing. And that's incredible. But there's no reason that I should have that when millions of people are working, well, much, much harder than I am, just to make a living. Two stories come to mind from my time in India. In 2010, I met a guy named Salu, and Salu was 16 in 2010 when I met him. And his father was a serious alcoholic, so he wasn't able to provide for the family. So he took it upon himself, being the oldest child, to take care of the entire family. So he worked really hard with the local merchant to provide for his mother and his two brothers. And then he had dreams of being a pharmacist. So at nighttime, he would take a bike and ride 5 miles over to a tutoring class, and he would study chemistry. And then he would come back. And mind you, I'm in a village with no electricity. So he comes back late at night, and then he lights up a kerosene lamp, and he's sitting by a textbook that is miserably old. It's like 20, 30 years old, and I don't know where he got it from, but he's sitting there with a kerosene lamp, studying until 1 in the morning. Only reason I know that is because in the middle of the night, I go to use the bathroom, and I see him sitting there, and he's the only one working. And then he wakes up at 5 in the morning, and I wake up at 7. And his energy levels are as if he got a full night's rest. And I'm wondering, this guy's working in the middle of the day, and then he studies at night, then he keeps studying at night, while I'm getting my 8 hours of rest and complaining about how it's 110 degrees in this village. It's incredible. And then there's another kid who's 6 years old. His name's Jilajit. And Jilajit was in a different financial situation from Salu. They both were disadvantaged, but Jilajit, his work at the age of 6 involved climbing trees and picking leaves. Because for his family, their form of sustenance was making plates out of leaves. All day, 8 to 10 hours a day, he would be picking leaves just to support his family for 1 or 2 rupees per plate. That was in 2010. I get a call on Thanksgiving Day 2011, before he's even 8 years old, that he fell off of a tree and died on impact while working. 8 to 10 hours a day before the age of 10, dies on impact. Jilajit was one of my favorite kids just because he was smiling a lot, and that is pretty much all I need to make me like you. So Jilajit was really fascinating to me. Despite all the work that he was doing at the age of 6, he just so happened to maintain such a positive attitude. And then I look at myself, and yes, there was plenty of lovely words said about me, and that I am incredibly grateful for all of it. But at the same time, compared to these kids, I've done nothing. I spoke English, I went to a good school, but really, what I really did was I was born in the right situation. I worked less hard than everybody else, compared to them. And somehow, I'm the one sitting in the suit, and I'm the one eating good food. And I'm the one that gets to speak to all of you right now. And when you think about that, graduating is a big accomplishment, it is, and I'm very grateful for everything that I've gotten. But at the end of the day, in the big scheme of things, graduation is a big stroke of luck. Hard work is this much of the equation. So much of it just has to do with where you were born, who your parents were, what your support network was, what the norms you were born into were. So if I think about it, I could be Jilajit, I could be Salu, I could be one of the many, many children in that village, and in thousands of villages across India. 70% of India is still in villages, but no one talks about it. Everyone's still talking about all the urban centers and all the development, but there's 70% of 1.2 billion people in villages, working much harder than all of us are. And, we get to enjoy this because we're lucky. The reason that I wanted to make this graduation party in honor of SEEKHO and not in honor of a graduation is because graduation is something that is very much a product of luck. And in a sense, I won an incredible lottery, and so has every single person in this room. We've all won incredible lotteries. And you know, when you win a lottery, for those who can't really afford the tickets to actually increase their likelihood to win that same lottery, I think it's kind of our duty to buy a few for them, so to say. And that's why I'm here. I mean, that's why I wanted to dedicate this to SEEKHO. Not because we're trying to fix a problem that the children created themselves, but rather because we just want to give them the same chance that, well, we have. If they're given the right soil, hard work will pay off. But if they're not, then hard work means very little. Hard work means you might fall out of a tree at the age of 8. Hard work means that you sleep for 3.5 hours a night and study by a kerosene lamp. And that's silly. It's silly that I get everything that I get and they don't. Because this is all lucky. And I am incredibly lucky that you guys are here today. I'm incredibly lucky to have the greatest of families. I'm incredibly lucky to have an incredible community. I'm incredibly lucky that I'm able to live in California, come home for a week just to celebrate Thanksgiving. And I'm fortunate that we could plan this party a week ago and all you guys are here right now because technology just so happens to be efficient enough for that to happen. It's incredible. And when you think about the unlikelihood of all of that happening, you can't help but want to give back. So I'm grateful. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you guys here today. And I can only hope that you guys have a really good time and enjoy this company and just remember how lucky it is that you have what we have. Thank you.